Alright, so let's continue from the previous video. Right now we have our interface, so now let's go ahead and go to the back end. And we're going to go ahead and start adding the button click to this. Now there's a couple of ways we can do this. We want to add the button click to all of these, including these two here. The first way you add a button click is you double click the button as fast as you can. And what it will do is it will go and write the double click. It'll write the function or the procedure in the back end with the name of the button here. And the way you can tell that it's using that button here with this name is in the back end it says handles the name of that button. So if you take that off, then it's just a regular procedure or function. But when you put this on there, it means it's going to be using that button. So let's go ahead and add all the other buttons. So I have the grab. I'm going to double click on this one to make it, or what I can do is I can select the button, then I can go over here to the properties, and over here by the properties you can see this little button that says properties, but right next to that there's a button called events, and this is all the events this object has. And right now you can see there's a click event. So if I just double click in there, it does the exact same thing as the double clicking the button itself. So that's two ways to do the exact same thing. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this. I'm gonna go back over here and I'm gonna do the same thing with the W. Double click. The north. East. Save that, and then the south. I'm making sure I'm only clicking these buttons because if you click something else, it'll also create something back there, which I don't want. And if it does, if you make a mistake and create something, all you need to do is delete that procedure itself. You also want to make sure your procedures are all inside of the window class. Everything has to be in a procedure, and every procedure has to be inside of the class. The only thing that doesn't have to be in a procedure are comments and variables, but everything else has to be in there. So now that I added this code, even though it doesn't do anything, I'm going to save it and I'm going to run it by hitting F5, making sure I don't have any errors. Good. I have these, just checking these buttons. I don't expect anything to happen, which is good. If something were to happen, that means there's an error. You always run your application expecting something, and if it doesn't do what you expected, that's actually an error, even though it actually works. So now we're ready to go ahead and create the variable that we're going to use to represent our rooms, and that variable is going to be, it's not really a variable, it's more of a collection, and it's called a dictionary. A dictionary is like a list, or let's say like an array, but it's a special kind of list or array, and it's called a collection, and it's a collection of keys and values. So it's a key value pair of data. The main thing you want to know about the dictionary class is that it's a generic class and it can store any kind of data that you want. You just have to make sure for proper programming that the data type is declared. And that's what we're going to do right now. So here's how we declare a dictionary. And I have a video up on talking about lists and dictionaries and arrays. And it'll be wise to go and watch that video. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put a link in the description below. So that way, if you want more information on dictionaries, you can go ahead and watch that video. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and declare my first room. And that first room was called Start, and I'm going to name it after the rooms. I'm not going to change the names at all. I'm going to name it exactly after the rooms that I have in the PowerPoint. So here I have the Start room, and I'm not going to do all of them. I'm going to do most of them. Well, I'm going to do enough to where you know exactly what you need to do, and then you can continue from there. So let me shrink this here. Okay. So I have this start room here, and I have that start room here. And then I'm going to say start room, dim start room as a new. And this new keyword is important. We'll talk about that some other time. Dictionary of string. And you want, so it's going to be a dictionary of a string. And then that's going to be the key. And then the value is going to be of a string. That means a dictionary takes two things. It takes the first thing, which we say is going to be a string. This could be anything. But the second thing also is going to be a string. It could be an integer, it could be an object, but we just want two strings. Now I'm going to do this to all of the rooms. So basically, I'm going to go down here, and then I'm going to type in the battle room or the next room. Now I could take this and continue on down with all the rooms, but there is a shortcut way to do this. Instead of me completely writing this out all the time, because they're all the same objects, technically what I can do is I can just remove that from there and put a comma here for each room that's going to be the same type. So you can see I'm not getting an error here. I'm starting with the start room, the battle room. What is this? Oh, this is supposed to be the engine room. Okay, let me remove this. The engine room, and so on and so forth with all the exact names of the rooms. And I'm starting all the rooms off with lowercase, and I'm continuing from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type this out, and then I'm going to pause the video, type it out, and come right back. So here we have a variable called message, and that starts off as nothing. Then I had dim all the rooms. I'm just going to go ahead and open this up here. As you can see, I have all the rooms here. And I did this to save space so that way it doesn't go too far down. And then I have something called a game item, which is also a list. And you notice how in the list it just has of string. It's just one kind of list that I'm holding here, and that's going to be the game items. Whereas the dictionary has two things. It has a index and it has a value. And then over here I have a current room name, which is just a string. And then I have a key, which is a true or false, a boolean, and I started off as false. So when I go here and you see in the engine room there's a key there, that's what that represents here. The current room is just going to be the name of the current room that I'm in. Now to make sure that this is readable, I'm going to take this room here because it's also a dictionary, and I want to put that here. I just want things to be in some sort of order here. So here I have this string, and I'm going to take this string. It doesn't really change the way the program works, but it does change the way the program is read by other people. And then I have my boolean here. Now up here I can say something like all right, so I have my notes for my team. Now we can go ahead and move on. So the first thing I want to do is go down here and check to see if I have any errors in my output, in my errors list. There's no errors there, no warnings. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to run this just to test this out in case there's any issues. No problems. Nothing should happen. I expect nothing to happen, which is exactly what happens. Go and close that. Now we can move on. Now when my application first starts, I want something. I want one of the rooms. I want all the rooms to be declared and ready to go. So even though we created a template to the rooms, we haven't created the rooms yet. So this is just a blueprint to the rooms. So now what we want to do is create the rooms, but we don't want the user to have to click on a button so the application can create that room. So we're going to go right under the variables and right before the first procedure, and we're going to type sub new. Once you type that, you're going to hit the enter key, and it's going to automatically write this for you. You don't really need the comments. If you want the comments, you can have them, but you want to start your code right underneath this initial component. So right under this initial component, I'm going to declare my rooms, and this is how we're going to add to the rooms, initialize the room. So well, let me correct that. We are initializing the rooms by adding something in it, but we did declare them a new room right here, which does create them as more than just a blueprint. It is an object because of this word. But if we were to take that word out of there, all of this would work, but this would just be a blueprint. But because of that new word, these are actual objects, and we're just initializing them here with the elements that go in those objects. So if I were to go here and hit start or type start and type add, and then I'm going to go inside these parentheses, and I'm going to add what the start room is. So when I go here to this view here, I can see the start room, the north, east, south, and west, is actually nothing in the north, nothing, a cave in the east, the south has nothing, and the west has the battle room. So if I were to take this here, you'll see how everything is, every navigation is working right. Let me do some color correction on this thing. There we go. All right, so you can see how all this applies to exactly what we're doing here. So here in the start, in the north, I have nothing. So I'm going to go over here in my code, and I'm going to type north. And then, because start is a dictionary, it takes two parts. It takes the key, and then it takes the value of that key. So north, what's the value of north in comparison to here? Well, north is gray, which means there's nothing there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put X for not, it's not, there's nothing there. And then I'm going to go do this again, start.add. And then this is going to be east. And in the east, there's the caves. That's the name of that room. All right, in the south, there is nothing. And in the west, there's the battle room. So I'm going to type west. All right, so this is exactly how we're going to create all of our rooms. And here I can put start room or whatever, but this is why the names, what you name things, is so important, because I don't really need a comment here for you to know that this is the start room, especially if my team, we already know the map. So when I go down here and I create the battle room, the name is going to be the battle room, so I don't really need to actually put too many comments there. You want your code to speak for itself most of the time. You don't want the comment to have to speak for it, but sometimes you may want a comment to remember some sort of website or something like that, or even just a comment to the team or comment to yourself to remember something. So for right now, make sure that everything is named in a way to where you don't really need comments, but you still should use comments. So what I'm going to do is pause the video and complete a few of these rooms, so that way you can get the idea. So continuing on with this map to the caves, basically I did the start, I did the kitchen, I did the battle room, and the engine room, the gold room, the caves, the lake, and I took the current room and I said the current room equals the start room. So that's the room we're going to be starting in here. So I have that one as the starting room. I could have made any room the starting room. So this is why we did this. So the start room doesn't have to be the start room. As a matter of fact, I can make it a random room every time the game starts. But for right now, I simply made it hard-coded that the start room is going to be the current room when you first start the game. So I'm going to save this because I can see this little dot up here next to the name. It means it's not saved. I'm going to hit Control S to save that, and then I'm going to run it to make sure I don't have any errors. And I expect nothing to happen, just as before. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and add, we need some sort of navigation here. And I think the navigation will be the core of how we move around in our application. Yeah, that's going to be the core way we move around. So I'm going to just call it navigation. And it's going to check to see if there's a location. So it's going to base it off of these location names. And it's going to take in that location to be able to determine where you currently are. So let me type that out, and then we can discuss it. So here's the procedure for the navigation. So as you can see, I have the name here, navigation, and then it takes in a location. I called it that. You can call it anything you want. That's just the name. It's just a variable name. And it's a string. So now when I go in here, I create a new variable right here, and it's a string. And then I said, okay, the current room, which is this room up here. Remember we set the current room earlier. Dot item, which is the items that's in there. And I want location, which is what we put inside of here. So here and here is the same thing. So it's going to grab that element from there and put it into this new variable every time this navigation is run. Now it's going to take this and it's going to go down here, and the message that you get initially is going to be blank. So I set the message to blank, and if you remember, that message was up here. We set it up here, and that's why when I use the message, this is a different message than the one above because this one is closed. However, I can just do something like this and remove that dim because I already dimmed a message up here that I can use, and basically I don't need any of this to be able to use this message because it's dimmed above. So I have this message here, and remember it was dimmed above everything. It's in the class, so that means I can use it. But if I were to dim this inside of a procedure, I'll have an error down here. As you can see, it doesn't know what message I'm talking about. And that has to do something with scope. And we're not going to talk about that in this video. Just make sure that it's dimmed inside of the class and not inside of a procedure. So now, as you can see, the error is gone. So here we have that message there. And now we have something called a select case statement. And you can see a select case statement like an if statement. Or let's say an if-else statement without all the if-else. So it keeps it condensed, and it makes it easier for you. It makes it more readable, which makes it, in this case, something we want to use because we're doing more than just a couple of cases here. We're doing almost every room here. This is why we don't want to have to deal with an if-else statement. They're both equivalent when it comes to speed or anything like that. The main takeaway from a select case statement is that it runs one of a series of groups of statements, and it all depends on the value or the expression. So if this equals, when it goes inside of here, let's say the current room is one of these rooms here, this one, and then it's east. So east will go in there, and then it goes in here, and that east will pull out start. And then it's going to check here to see if this one equals any of these cases here. So if it equals start, then it's going to do this. It's going to change the message. It's going to take the current room and make it into the start room, not the string, but the actual start room with no quotes. And then it's going to turn that current room name into start. And it's going to do that for all of the rooms here. And I'm doing it for all the rooms I created, but you would do it for, so yours might be a little bit longer depending on how many rooms you have. But basically, I made a case for every room, and it does exactly the same thing. And then the last one is if none of these cases are true, the case else says this is what you're going to do. And remember that X that we had? If it returns an X, which is none of these names, then this room is locked. Choose another room. Then it's going to take all of that and it's going to put that message, whatever the message is, into the lbl.content. So now all we need to do is use that navigation that we just created, and I'm just going to go here and type in navigation, and in the west button I'm going to put west, and I'm going to do the same to all the other buttons. It's inside of the grab button. What we are going to do is create that current room. We're going to check, because this is the engine room, we got to check to see inside of here if it is the engine room, if the current room name, which is what we made above, equals if it equals the engine room. Okay, and if it equals the engine room, we're going to take that game item and we're going to add the word key and make it all lowercase. And then we're going to set our key boolean to true. Remember, all these variables we made above, we made these earlier because we planned it out, and so we know what these variables are. Then I'm going to take that lbl info.content, that's going to equals you now have a key, let's say. And I'm going to go ahead and add that to the list that we put up there, the list items. And then that's going to be the item source. And that's going to equal this game item list that we have here. And the reason why we did it this way, because maybe we might add more items, but right now we're only using one item. Well, in this tutorial, we're using one item. You can add as many as you want. As long as once you get the idea down, you can do anything from there. So, sorry, it's going to be equals game items. Okay. Now, that's if it's the engine room. If it's not the engine room, I don't have anything else. But let's say if I had a whole bunch of rooms with items in it, I might just use a select case statement. I don't want to use a whole bunch of if-else statements. So that's just an idea of how I would go about it. You could use if-else statements to continue it, or just if statements to do this whole thing if you wanted to. So it's completely up to you. I'm going to say the label.info content. All right, so that's the grab button. So now let's go ahead and go to the drop button. So in the drop button, what we're going to do is we're going to check and see if we do have a key. So I'm going to say if key equals true. So if the key is true, I want to remove the game item. And the game item I want to remove is called key. That's why we just made it lowercase, so that we don't have to worry about anything. But also what I want to do is I want to remove things from the list itself. So I'm going to say list, the list object we have up there. Dot item source equals nothing. And I want to set the key to equals false. And then I want to change the label so the user knows what's going on. Equals. So this else is going to happen when there is, if key is false. So if there's no key, then I think we should just say you have no items to drop. So it could be a key, it could be anything. So I want to make this completely generic. And basically that should be it. That's our word game right there. This is perfect. I mean, we could have some images and stuff happen or pop up or become visible or an invisible, some music, all that sort of stuff happening. But basically we have the functionality of our game here. We have our start and we can move around this entire map. We can make this map as big as we want. We can put items in this map. We can add characters in this map and they talk back when we get to that particular room or region or whatever. So now when we run this, I'm going to hit save. When we run this, I'm expecting everything to actually work as I expected. So including the drop. So I'm just going to hit grab really quick and it says nothing here. And I'm going to hit drop here. You have no items to drop. Now I did that because I know I should not be able to grab a key because I'm in the start room. But if I were able to grab a key, I know there's something wrong with my logic, so I would have to go back and reevaluate what's going on, or if I were to get an error. So really, you want to click around and just make sure that nothing is happening that you don't expect to happen. So now let's go to this key room. Let's go to this engine room. Actually, I'm going to go over here to the lake. So I'm right here. I'm going to go east, caves, right here. I'm in the lake, and I'm going to go east again just to make sure. I'm going to go up, down, and I'll go back to the caves, up to, oh, I can't, that one's locked. Did I do the bonus room? Nope, bonus room is locked. Back to the start room. I'm in the battle room. I'm going to go down to the engine room. Okay, now I'm in the engine room. So now I should be able to grab. There we go. You now have a key, and as we can see, the key is up here. And I'm going to go down here. And I'm going to go back to the start room. And I'm going to hit grab. There's nothing here. And I'm going to hit drop. Now it says the item has been returned to its original location. And as you can see, it removed itself up here inside of my list. So let's go back to that engine room and then pick it up. You now have a key. Now I can make it to where when I have that key, one of these other rooms open up. So it's like a special room, or maybe this gold room is locked and that's the only time I get to use the key in the gold room, or that's the only way I can escape out of some other area of the map. In any case, you have a full functioning game, full functioning word game that you can add to, or you can just use it as an engine to build other games. Hopefully this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. And make sure that you subscribe and make sure that you like so I can know that these detailed videos are helpful to you. All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye.